Are you having trouble making money as a barber? Do you own a barber shop that is struggling, or are you renting a booth and you're not making much money as a booth renter? Today, I'm speaking to Carl Hinder, who is an expert in barbershop businesses. He has been the owner of 4 successful salons, and he's also worked with some of the largest retailers in the UK. He's an author, he's a public speaker, and today I'm going to speak to him about barbershop problems and how you can solve them. Well, Carl Hinder, welcome to the 1 Minute Barber. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the channel.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Carl, I'm going to kick off with just a quick true or false round, and I just want you to answer true or false to these questions. I can't raise the prices in the town I'm in. I need to match my competitors' prices.
False.
The government will sort out inflation soon. I just have to wait it out.
False.
I need to work more than ever so I can pay the bills.
False.
There's no point in stocking products. Nobody ever buys them.
False.
My staff aren't making any profit. I should start giving them bonuses so they work harder.
False.
My staff cause all kinds of problems, but I can't afford to lose them.
False.
I should start renting my booths cheaper so that I don't lose my chair renters.
False.
I should introduce a loyalty card system so that my customers stick with me.
False.
And the last one, I should do discounts for pensioners and kids.
False.
Kind of thought that would be the last answer. All right, Carl, let's go through it. I can't raise my prices in the town that I live in. I need to match my competitors' prices. What's that all about?
That would be the right assumption if you're a business owner. If you actually knew that the people you were copying were making good money, if they were making good profits. So it's not as if that judgment is totally wrong. But in reality, what we know, or what I know through experience and working with lots of people, is that around 80% of salon spas and clinics are either at break even or at loss. We also know that a high percentage of salon owners, including barbershop spas, the whole lot, don't pay themselves or don't pay themselves very much. So we can't go following that model. If we follow that model, what we're actually saying is, I want to be like you, and you don't pay yourself anything. You don't pay your staff very much. You don't have a great life out of your business, and so I want to be like you. So, no, we can't follow the model. It's the biggest mistake that we make. And I don't know about you, Michael, but I did it when I started my very first salon. I looked at the competition and I thought, I've got to compete with these guys. Fortunately, I spotted it in the first couple of years and managed to move out of that space.
Well, I used to have that bias in my head that the town I live in, I can't put my prices up. Like there's some kind of invisible ceiling where I'm making a judgment on how much money people can pay. Why am I doing that? Is that the right way to go? Is there a better way to calculate my prices than just having a guess at what people can afford?
Okay, so what we have to do when we're doing these calculations, we have to take the emotion out of them. So we have to make pricing a mathematical equation and not an emotional one. So we always think of our location, and don't forget, most of us started our businesses in areas that we had some affinity to, or we grew up in, or something like that. So we are emotionally entrenched. We have to do it mathematically. Now, I'm gonna mention my pricing app at some stage. You could do it with a big, A4 pad and a pencil and spend hours working them out. But simply you need to put your information into a calculator, if you like, and the information that comes out then is unbiased. It's only actually giving you direction based on what you've put in. So, yeah, to follow what other people are doing and then to do it because of location is emotionally wrong.
Right. I mean, Carl, when we first met a few years ago, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, I had a really, really busy barbershop, but I kind of figured my staff were making more than I was. I have this really busy shop, but I'm struggling to make money because I'd priced it incorrectly. And then when I spoke to you and we worked it all out and we got to the correct price, it was considerably more than I was charging. And I thought, well, I can't be afraid of this, right? Because if I don't charge this price that is the correct price, then I don't actually have a business that's worth having? I may as well just have a job and have all the rights of an employee.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the word you used there is the right one. We're always looking for a correct price. We hear a lot of people in the industry saying about put your prices up, put your prices up, put your prices up. That might not be the case. For each individual business, we've got to find the right price, the correct price. Once we do, then we can survive, right? Once we do, we can thrive. And there's no saying for all the people listening now, there's no saying that your business model will ever work if it might be that the correct price means you don't have a viable business. That doesn't mean you have to close. It just means you've got to change a heck of a lot. Maybe you've got to change the way you're managing your staff, or maybe you've got to change your prices, of course, but maybe you've got to change what you do in terms of retailing or your opening hours. So it doesn't mean that you have come to a dead end, if you like, if your prices are incorrect. But when I'm coaching someone, if someone phones me up and says, Carl, I want to, grow my business, the very first thing we do is pricing, because there's no point me giving them advice all based on prices that are too low. If they say, Carl, tell me about the marketing, I want to get 100 new clients. Well, no, you don't, because you're going to bring in 100 new clients all at the wrong price. And the other thing we do with this pricing thing, right, is sometimes we bring people in on a low price. And that attracts the wrong people for our type of business. Sometimes we are fabulous hairdressers and barbers and therapists, and we bring people in because we have this emotion that we've got to fill our business, right? Because it's kind of like it's driving our ego. The trouble is when we bring them in at a low price, they are then very hard to manage. They're very hard to put their price up at a later time. They're very hard to sell products to. So yeah, we've got to get to the correct price. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a higher price all the time, but it's got to be the right price.
And Carl, when I put my prices up, what if I lose my clients?
Well, put it this way. You've got to work out what that balance is. I would say that in the majority of cases, you will lose some clients, but you got to work this out. Let's say you're going to put your prices up by 10%, and maybe you've got a few hundred clients. If you lose two or three or five or 10, it isn't really going to matter, because the other remaining clients are going to give you so much more income that it's okay to lose those few. It's your emotions that are stopping you from doing that. If you're thinking, oh my god, what if I lose this client? He's been with me a couple of years or 10 years. So that stops you from progressing, because you don't do that. But I also think that it opens up some spaces for new clients who are looking for you, who are prepared to pay the right price. I think we were touching on this and we kind of skimmed over it in our first couple of minutes, if you like. We don't always look at price correctly. We look at it in isolation. We say this haircut is worth £20 and that's the end of it. But it's not. We got to be looking at value. When the client sees value higher than the price, you have a sale. So, you could have three barbers or hairdressers in the same street, and they could all be £20, and one could be chock a block. And it's nothing to do with price. It's because that one gives you more value. Maybe they're faster, maybe they're slower, maybe their coffee's better, maybe they're open better hours, maybe they're better at do you know what I mean? So it's price can't be dealt with in isolation.
Kind of sticking on price a little bit. Inflation is absolutely crushing some barber shops right now, crushing them. What can people do about that? Should they sit in their hands? Will the government sort it out? What kind of actions or, what should they be doing?
Okay, so the first thing on inflation is, or let's do the first thing on the government. No government, forget the political side of this, no government will ever sort your business out for you. We'll wait a lifetime before they sort anything out for you. So you have to take everything into your own hands. We then have to understand what inflation is. Inflation is always, well, I say always, I will qualify that in a moment. Inflation will always be going up. So if you're going to wait for the government and you watch the news and they say, oh, inflation's come down from 10% to 8% to 6% to 4%, that doesn't mean your business has got better um, in terms of inflation, because 4% still means that your cost of goods, as an example, are still rising at 4%. Yeah, it's still a negative position for you to be in. Now, apart from a few years that we had in the noughties, I think it was, or maybe into the tens, we had a couple of years of deflation, but that's very, 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 very rare. So you're always going to have inflation, always. So the key things to do is to respond to that. Now, I hear most salons responding to that by actually um, cutting back on costs. And that's absolutely so dangerous to do. And it's dangerous for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you cut back on costs, think about this logically, you can only do it once. You can't do that every day. You can't say, "Oh, I'll cut. Inflation is now 8%. I'll cut back. I'll change my color brand. I'll change my product brand. I'll change my electric supplier." So first of all, you could do that once, perhaps, and maybe you can do that once a year and realign everything. And I would say to everyone, yeah, check your costs, frequently, but you can't save your business on that. The next area, of course, we're going full circle, aren't we? You have to inflate your prices. But your prices have to be correct, by the way, before you inflate them. Because I hear people saying, I put my prices up by 5% every year. Well, that might be okay if inflation is less than 5%. And when we started, your price was right. But if your price was wrong 5 years ago and we're still doing 5%, it's still wrong. So, no, you can't wait for the government. You can go and control your costs a little bit, but most of inflation is going to be dealt with through the price of the service that you sell.
Yeah, Carl, would you recommend, I mean, just staying on that price point there and inflation, would you recommend that when someone is setting a price to go a little bit beyond the level of inflation to account for how inflation is going to change in the preceding months or
Okay.
not?
So when I'm working with a client one on one, we do something called future proofing. In fact, I'm running a live session in the next couple of weeks for a group of people. It's called future proofing. So when you're sitting down with your calculator or my pricing app, when you sat there, don't put in the information of today. And certainly don't put in information from your accounts, which are probably a year or 18 months old already. Even your bank statement from last month, because of inflation, is already out of date. So, if last month your fuel bills were £1,000, well, this month it's going to be 1,100. So that information is always wrong. So you've got to future proof. Now, future proofing means forecasting what you're going to do. Two things here. First of all, forecast what you're going to be spending on those kinds of things like rent, water, rates, all that sort of stuff. And don't put in what they are, put in what they are plus any projection. So that could be inflation. If you think inflation is going to be 5% in the next 6 months, you can put that in. Sometimes you're going to be notified. Sometimes your landlord is going to tell you, I'm putting your rent up in 4 months, Carl. Well, now put that in now. Don't put it in 4 months' time. The other thing to think about is if you are one of these people trying to grow your business, and you really should be, because that's the inflation beat, that is to grow your business. Standing still means you're going backwards. So if you're trying to um, if you're trying to grow your business, you might be spending more money on things like marketing. So you might have only spent £100 last month on marketing, but if you're saying to me, Carl, I want an extra 100 clients, well, listen, this month and the next month we're going to be spending £500 on marketing. So yeah, that's future proofing, Michael. We have to forecast. That's what we are as entrepreneurs. We can't just pretend that we're not responsible for this stuff. We've got to use our business brains and say, what does the future look like? And put that into your calculations now.
Yeah, you got to have a plan and you need to be looking into the future and don't sit on your hands and wait for yourself to get crushed. All right, Carl. So, I mean, marketing you brushed on there. We've talked about price, and I actually think this point where you said false there might be a bit of truth in it. I need to work more than ever so I can pay the bills. Can I just say, work more than ever? Maybe there is a time like now where you should work more than ever, but work differently than what you're doing. Or, I mean, could you elaborate on that? For instance, working more in marketing.
The business owners who are also barbers and hairdressers and therapists, okay? You guys should not be working personally and physically harder, because the harder you work, the business around you falls apart. So that's what I mean by false. We should not be trying, I'll do some more hours. Yeah, I'll do another day. I'll do another morning. I'll squeeze that client in. I'd work through my lunch. Absolutely not. That's not the way to approach the business, especially as when we have this, let's call it an economic challenge or an economic lull. This might go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What are you going to do? You can't work harder and harder and harder. It's an impossible thing. So I say it's a false situation to do that. All of the business owners, without exception, all of the business owners that are successful, and I mean they have reached a financial level and a freedom level that they desired, are ones who work really hard. So maybe we are agreeing on this part. You got to work really hard, but you got to work harder at other things. You got to work harder on your business. You got to work harder at getting your staff to perform. You got to work harder at getting them to retail. You got to get work harder at your accounts. At some of the finances. So yeah, let's agree on you got to work harder, but not personally and physically.
What about other ways to make money in the salon? In the past, before we talked, I used to stock products. I'd get a rep come into my shop and he'd say, "Hey, buy this range," and I'd say, "Yeah, okay." He'd promise me it was the next best thing, and it would just sit on a shelf, gathering dust. And then I'd get duped again, maybe a year later, and I'd buy the next best thing, and that would gather dust. Should I bother at all having products in my shop?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about it like this: when you sell products, it's like having an extra member of staff, and in fact, you don't need any more staff to sell it. So if you're a sole operator, you can increase your sales without working any more hours, without recruiting any more people, without any more overheads. So you have to do it for that reason. It's great for your sales. I don't think most people realize that they make more profit on products than they do on the service. So the UK average for service profit is around 10%. And the UK average, and this is not much different for the USA and my USA clients, the UK average for product profit is around 50%. So if you sell, £100 worth of products, you're going to get 50 quid in profit. Now, I always call profit things you, you know, um, money you can spend on whatever you want. But you do 100 quid in haircuts, you only actually end up with a tenner. So for profit and sales, you have to do it. But what we have to do with retail is we have to be obsessed. That was maybe your kind of dilemma when you had it. Maybe you put lots of effort into it and it worked, and then you're like, oh, this is a bit boring, or I can't keep this up, or I don't believe in retailing, or whatever your reason was, and we fall off it. We have to just make retailing one thing. I'm actually rebuilding my retail course right now, and I talk about this a lot in there. We've got to stop separating it. In any of our businesses within our industry, we have to use a product to get the result. That even if we can't shampoo someone's hair without shampoo, can we? We can't style someone's hair without a styling product. Yet we expect them in a way to go home and not have any products and not continue with being able to style their hair. So retailing would be anyone who's struggling with inflation. And even if you're not, even if you've got an amazing business, make it more amazing, because that's all retailing is: customer service.
Well, Carl, after we talked and we talked about retail, one of the things I went away and I told my staff was, from this point forward, whenever you go to the till with the client, and this is one tiny little change, say these words: "Would you like any product with that today? Would you like to buy any product?" And that was it. And instantly, just by them saying that one sentence, it increased my sales overall throughout the week. And say you have 5 chairs and everybody's saying that with
Yeah,
every client, all of a sudden you start to see the products are selling.
yeah.
And like you say, you maybe have a 50% profit on each one. And it's not costing you any more time at all.
I mean, we could do this just on retailing. It's such a huge area. Even what you said there about, would you like this product? I mean, if I were coaching you, I would take a different approach. I would never ask someone. I would never, because when you ask someone, would you like this? Well, actually, when I say, first of all, by the way, most people never get asked. So if you're not asking, if you're listening to this podcast and you've never asked, please start asking. That's okay. But there's a better approach, which is to tell the client. So we should always be getting these products after we've explained them and used them, and everyone's looking wonderful, and we get to the desk. The product should be at the desk, and we should say to them, which of these would you like? Which ones? Yeah, these are the ones that Mike's recommended for you. Which ones would you like? It shouldn't be because, again, you see what I mean? We keep thinking that retail is optional, and it's not optional. Retail is not optional for us to use. It's not optional for our business, and it's not optional for the client. It has to just be one whole big thing. So I wouldn't even ask them.
You would just say, which one would you like? So they
What?
have to commit to one.
Yeah, which one? Oh, which ones? Yeah, which ones? Which ones would you like today?
Yeah. It blows my mind because there's no way I would use product on a client that I've bought from the supermarket, and then why would I let them go away? Why do I want them to go away? And then after I've cut their hair and I've got it the way I want it to look, and the products I use, I really like the products I use, and they're not going to be able to do it with the product that they go away and buy somewhere else. So they've spent the money on the hair, but they're not going to be able to recreate it themselves. So what's the point in that? You're better off
Okay,
giving
so
them the product.
have you? Well, there is that as well. I'll give you a little anecdote now. But first of all, I don't know if you've heard me using this terminology. I call people who look after the client really, really, really well in the salon, but don't sell products, front door professionals. So I just say to them, so you're just a front door professional, which means you love your client until they get to the front door. And when they go out, you don't care. You don't even care if they get knocked over by a bus, right? But until they get to that door, I absolutely love you. So, first of all, we've got to start loving our client beyond. We have to kind of think, well, how are you going to manage for work tomorrow? How are you going to get on that camera? Okay. Um, this afternoon. So, we've got to kind of start thinking a little bit further, and we've got to stop in that. In terms of whether we should give the client a product, when I had my salons, I had a client, and I went through a process where I coach a process that we do time after time after time after time, and the approach is we might take 3 weeks or 3 years to get this client to understand what we do. And I can even remember his name. Okay, this guy's name was Kevin. He'd been with me for maybe 6 or 12 months, and in the end, I said to him, "I tell you what we're going to do, Kevin. I'm going to give you this product. All right, on the grounds that you promise you will use it between now and the next cut. And if you love it, you'll buy it. And if you don't love it, I will never say anything to you again." Okay, so anyway, he comes back, whatever it was, a month later, walks in the door. "Right then, Kevin, how'd you get on?" I said, "I can see that you're using it today." He said, "Carl, it's absolutely fine. You was right all along." Now, I knew I would be because there's no gamble for me. I've been giving him good professional advice for a long time. So, yes, there are situations where you could give them away as well.
Okay, let's move to the next topic, Carl. My staff aren't making any profit. I should give them bonuses so that they work harder for me.
Okay, look, I really believe in all our businesses, we should share the wealth. I don't think we should have bosses who have, all the money and all the freedom, and your staff have nothing. So, absolutely don't believe in that at all. However, I don't believe in distributing the wealth before you've got it. So, we only start giving bonuses once someone has achieved something. That's how the world of sport works. That's how the world of most commercial businesses work. So if you are a great achiever, then you get your bonuses. The problem we have is we give the bonuses too early. So we don't have to give. I think what we get confused with here is we think we have to incentivize someone to perform more. Well, pay them really well to start with. I think that's a problem in our industry is we don't pay them enough. And do you know why? Because sometimes the prices are wrong, right? So we don't pay them enough. And so we're always trying to compensate. So whenever you start someone, pay them what they need. That's a really important statement. Pay them not what they want, okay? Pay them what they need, so then they are not worrying about money every day. And then um, demand certain processes for the money that you're giving them. So you're the 10 standards that I want you to do for that £15 an hour. And once they hit targets, Then we start on the bonuses and the commissions and and the rewards. So not the other way around. That's a recipe for disaster.
Carl, do you know what the is there an average wage that people get paid in salons? Are you aware of a number, or is it quite variable?
It's very variable, but I can tell you what the wage should be. So if anybody listening to this can work this backwards, and I'm talking about. I'm not talking to clinics here or high-end spa. I'm talking more hairdressing, barbering, because they have a bigger multiple. But you should be paying. Uh, how can I put it this way? They should be taking around 3.5 times their wage. So you can divide whatever they're taking by 3.5, and that'll tell you what you should be paying them.
Seems like a lot, Carl. That seems like a lot. 3.5 times. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, the guys I'm working with now, because of the challenges we've had over the last year, we're up to about 3.7. And if you was talking to me 10 years ago, I would be talking about 3. So we'll just go for 3.5 times that. Right. Roughly speaking, in layman's terms, the reason we have to go to 3.5 is this. Every time, let's say someone's on £10 an hour, because of things like staff training, pensions, sickness, holidays, etc., you roughly pay them £20 an hour. Okay, over a year, whatever your hourly rate is, it's roughly around that £20 mark. So there's 2 times wage gone already. So now from 2 times wage to 3 times wage, we have some money, right? So 2 times wage to 3 times wage, we now spend that on what? Electric, water, gas, heating, coaching fees, right? All that kind of stuff. And so you, as the owner, still have no money. So they've had two parts of it. All the other people have had one part of it. Now, where's your part? Okay. So your part starts to come in between that 3 and 3.5. Now, Michael gets a little bit of money for himself. Yeah, he gets a little bit of profit for his holiday and for his efforts and for his stress. After that 3.5, we can now give that back. We can now do the bonuses. We can now do all the commissions. You're thinking that's quite a lot, but let's say someone's getting paid £10 an hour. That means they've got to deliver £35 an hour. Okay? So if they're on £20 haircuts on 30 minutes, that's £40 an hour. They've done it.
Yeah. So to put this in perspective, Carl, right? You're saying £10 an hour. Now that probably is like that's a really low wage. That
It's
now
terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
you're gonna need like to live nowadays, and I don't know what it is in the United States, but like £15, $20 an hour, something like that
Yep.
minimum. Um,
Yep.
and you're a skilled person, so I think it should be more than the minimum. Um, so that then shows a little bit what the price should be. The price should be at least a magnitude of 3.5 times what that
Right.
wage is.
Yeah, spot on. So I was forecasting that the barbering hairdressing sector is going to need to be in that 15 to £20 hourly bracket by 2025, and the beauty in that 20 to 25 a pound bracket. We've already got obviously some people way, way, way above that, and lots of people well below. But you're right, because if you don't get that price right, how do you pay these wages? And I know we're not really going on to recruitment today, but people complain about recruitment, but you're not paying these people, okay? Because your prices are wrong. We're not paying ourselves because your prices are wrong. So you can see it's all interlinked, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, actually, Carl, the more I think about that little equation there, if it say it's £20 an hour, by
Yeah.
what did you say, 2025,
Yeah, that's just my
2026?
personal
So
estimation. Yeah, yeah,
okay, so say it's £20 an hour and you need 3.5 times that. That's £70. They have to bring in £70. That then means your prices have to be set, I believe, even higher than that because they're not busy 100% of the time. There's going to be some downtime as well.
yeah. So what we do here is, I'm glad you pointed that out, because sometimes when we work this out manually, we say, "Well, I'm open, I don't know, or 100 hours, or sorry, 150 hours a week. Therefore, I'll divide everything into 50." You're right. So busy businesses are around 80%. Nobody's around 100%. Okay, so that 20% of inactivity has to be paid for by the other 80% of clients. So you're right. But even if that was a £70 an hour generation, that's £35 a cut. Now, of course, you could look at other things. If you was really, really, really good at retail, you could turn that into 80 or £90 an hour without increasing the price too much. But you can't be flaky on it. You got to be committed.
Okay, let's just flip over to the other side of the people that work in the shop, chair renters, people who are renting booths. So, and I know in the United States that's really the way the
Huge.
business seems to work more than having employees. What are the problems with booth renting now?
I think the big thing with booth renting is the UK as well, is that we are charging low rents, way, way, way too low. And I think the I'll call them salon owners. Sometimes we hear them called landlords. They want to get rid of the pressure and the stress of managing staff. So they say, okay, well, I'll just get two or three booth renters, and I'll charge them maybe, I don't know, £50 or $50 a day, and that'll be $250 a week, and that'll be nice and that'll be fine. What we forget is that is the sale. You can now that is That's not a rent. It is a rent, but that's the sale for that person of 250, and there is no opportunity to increase it. You can't say, I'm going to go and buy a new car, or I want to refurbish the salon or something. So we'll have a drive on sales. It's done and dusted. So I think the biggest problem is with booth rental that the rents are way, way, way too low across the board.
Okay, so I mean, if if I'm a booth renter and I'm listening to this and I know that the landlord's listened to Carl and he's going to put the price up of the rent, how do I respond? I got to put my
Well, do you
price
know
up,
what?
right?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the booth renters are doing fabulous. So well done to you guys. You've seen
Yeah.
a gap in the market. You're all, I don't know, all of you, lots of you are making good money, which is fabulous. It can't be sustained because the landlords won't be able to pay their bills and they'll run out of love, energy, and money. So we got to remember that booth renters and chair renters and room renters are sole traders, or they are their own operators. So they have the same opportunity, don't they? They have to now go and look at what price. That's how they overcome this.
I feel like the whole booth renting world is really cutthroat as well. The amount of poaching that goes on in the booth renting world, it's just relentless.
How do you mean poaching in a booth rental? Because see, I don't ever see booth renting the same as staff. If you said staff poaching, I get you. How can you poach someone for booth rental?
Well, I've had it done to me. I've been poached before, and not I haven't been poached, but my booth renters have been poached. So I mean, I suppose somebody opens up a new shop where they have I don't know 10 chairs, and they've got nobody to rent a chair. So then they come to your
Yeah,
booth renters and they say, "Hey, I'm going to give you a chair at a lesser price than you're paying at Michael's shop." And then they're like, "Yeah, yeah, great idea. I'll come." And then that's it.
yeah,
And there just seems to be this turnover of people moving because everyone's trying to race to the bottom on the cost of a chair.
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of the statement that I was making. The rents are getting suppressed, to a point where that's not an operational model. So, and because the booth renters have got low rent, they don't have to put their price up. They're not in the same fight as the other salons. But it's only it can only be a temporary situation, and I'm talking over the years, because you as a landlord can't sustain that. You can't have people on £10 a day rent, and I've seen rents down at 20, £25 a day. That doesn't even cover the electric. So we
Yeah.
we have to kind of put this in context. The reason I was saying about poaching, because I don't see booth renters as being poached, because they are separate companies. And the guy across the road, I know it feels like it, by the way, yeah, because we're emotionally attached. But the guy across the road, the landlord, is a company, and he is speaking to another company. And he's saying to that company, we have a better premises for you. Whereas when they're staff, they are under your legal employ. And that's a different situation, different. But how do we over? We don't. What we have to do is we have to give value to these booth renters, and that value isn't lower and lower rents because you won't exist. It's going to have to be something like better marketing, or better facilities, or better, support, like, I don't know, front of house or apprentices. But then the rent's got to go up, hasn't it?
Just speaking on booth renters again, because I know you talk to salon owners, but these booth renters are business owners also.
Yeah.
When we're talking about price, should booth renters have the same price as the booth renter next to them in the shop?
Well, there's no reason for them because both those booth renters are two different
No, but it
companies.
seems to be the way it is.
It is, and that's because of disguised employment, isn't it? So first of all, you've got the pressure from the landlord or the salon owner saying, "I want you to look like my staff." And so we're going to have an even picture, which makes it nice and easy for me on my website and nice and easy for me on my leaflets. So if you all stay the same, that'd be great. You also got that competition between the two booth renders, like two salons, saying, "Oh, well, I'm not going to go higher than him because I'll lose my customers." So it's like two salons fighting over it's the same scenario in miniature. The reality is, if you're a booth renter and you're chock a block now, and there's a few of you out there, then you have no reason to keep that price. If you put your price up by £5, make sure as long as it's correct, then you may get a different type of client, or you might lose a few to the other booth renters, but make more money. We haven't created that in the UK. In the USA, because they're like 30 years ahead of us on the booth renting model, they've got that. It's a very free model where you will have six booth renters, particularly in the hair sector, all on different prices all over the place because they've niched out. They don't try to look like one salon. They try to look like a booth rental setup. It's There's a bit of a misalignment between us and the and USA at the moment. But for us, I think we're going through the learning curve. That's what it is on booth rental or chair
So,
rental.
so in the US, are they more likely to have just a range of different prices and offerings in a big barber shop or salon? Is that kind of the way they've gone?
Yeah, they've recognised the um, legal remit where they can't say to a chair renter or a booth renter, you have to stay at this price point. They accept that these are companies renting a space, and whatever you do within that space, as long as it's legal, is over to you. We haven't quite got that yet. We still talk about reputation. We use salon owners with booth rentals saying, "Yeah, yeah, but I can't have a customer complaint because of my reputation." Well, it's not your customer and it's not your reputation. It's that chair renter's customer and it's their reputation. I know emotionally. Look, I've been there. Four salons I had. I know how it feels right by here.
It's quite a hard one, that, because the client doesn't see it as a booth renter. The client sees it as the name above the door. So when it comes to they decide that they're going to go and have a rant on social media, it's
Ah,
normally the salon or the barber shop that gets
but
the
yeah, but
bad
that's only
press.
because when I go. In fact, I go to a barbershop setup that um, is all now booth renters. I won't tell you that story unless you ask, but it's all. So in this place, they have by each mirror, um, what do they call it? Details of the barber. So they says this space is rented by John the Barber. That's not a real name, by the way. John the Barber, and here's his home address because you've got to give a correspondence address, and here's his contact telephone number. Well, we have to do that. You should have that in every salon on your desk for your business. Okay. A customer should have your registered address available like that. And underneath is their insurance. So when I'm having a haircut, by here it says, I'm nothing to do with these guys, and here's my insurance, and here's my details if you're unhappy with me. We don't normally do that. We pretend it's not happening.
Showing the client that you're a separate business altogether. And
Yeah.
if you were to up and leave and go somewhere else, you'll take all, they understand that, and you'll take all those clients with you. That's your business and you're going to carry it. Maybe you want to go and
Yeah.
open your own salon or barber shop,
Yeah.
and you've made it quite clear that you're a separate business. I do like that, actually.
We've got to get better, though. The landlords have got to get better at this. So John um, messes up a haircut. and comes into the salon and he sees the property owner, then the property owner should be saying, I'm sorry about that incident. Look, here's John's details. Phone John, yeah? And John will sort you out. John will give you the refund. John will recut your hair. John will apologize. We still don't do that. We still go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can I put you over here with someone else? Or I'll do it myself if I have the skills. Or, you know what I mean? We haven't got the boundaries. We need boundaries.
I have had that. I mean, one of my chair renters had an issue with a client once and was too afraid to deal with it and just flat out refused to deal with it. And I had to deal with it, because it wasn't. I mean, I did have a really sound contract. It was the National Hairdressers Federation
Yeah, yeah,
contract, which was pretty clear.
yeah.
That particular situation wasn't covered in the contract, so
Right.
I didn't really know
Yeah,
where I stood, and I ended up dealing with it myself.
right. Well, strictly speaking, it's not nice. I'm not saying it's a nice emotion that I'm projecting you in terms of they're on their own and everything they do. But if I was guiding someone, I was saying, Carl, I want to go to a rental model, and let's talk about the benefits. And I would say the benefits are, is sh- in simple terms, there's less responsibility for you. So, and I'm going to watch your eyebrows as I say this. So when that barber doesn't turn up, okay, and their client turns up, it's got nothing to do with you. But that's not how you feel, is it? You might, oh my God, he hasn't turned up. Well, the benefit of them being self-employed was you didn't worry about that. Or if they don't even phone in sick. They don't even need to phone in sick. They just don't rock up. It's their job to phone all those clients. Um, so if we really want to get the benefits as landlords, if you like, from booth rental model, we should really be independent. Refunds, sickness, everything. That's your in that square space, it's all over to you. I think it's harder for the guys who have converted. Maybe, I would have thought that you've got a great reputation in your area over the years. And so, people probably know you as well, and it's very hard to kind of break that a connection now. But if for someone starting off new, they certainly should say, "There's their space, there's their details," and let them get on with it. And the USA is very good at that.
Carl, I want to get to the last couple of questions now, and we're moving over to customers. Should I have a loyalty system for my customers?
Okay, I'm going to answer that in two ways. If you mean a loyalty system, like the old-fashioned stamping system, where you, I don't know, get 9 haircuts and the 10th free, or something along those lines, absolutely not.
Exactly that.
Exactly that. Please no. And I'll tell you why. Think about this as an entrepreneur, or think of it as a customer actually. Let's say you've had 9 haircuts and you're really, really happy with I've just cut your hair 9 times and you're really happy with me. Are you not going to come a 10th time anyway? I don't need to give you a tenth of my sales back because you're going to come anyway. And on the reverse of this, let's say you've had, are you really seriously going to come for 9 rubbish haircuts? So you could have a 10th rubbish haircut. So nobody's getting this card and going, yeah, I'm 3 times into this rubbish haircut, but if I get a 9, I get a 10th rubbish haircut. So nobody's staying for that. And if I'm there for 9 and I love my barber, I'm coming anyway. So you're not doing anything. You're not. It has no purpose. It has no purpose.
I totally get that. I mean, you're offering something that is not what they're looking for anyway. They want a good haircut. They probably are not going to cut, like you say, they're not going to come to you for a rubbish haircut. You couldn't have put it any better. I don't know why I'm reiterating it. You nailed it, Carl.
You know, are there opportunities to do something with a reward scheme? Absolutely. I mean, you could say 9 acres and have it, and the 10th one have a free shave. Yeah, because that might convert them to shaving. Yeah, and then, but you
I see
don't
what you're
then
saying.
do. Yeah, so then you kind of like, oh, I've never had a shave before. Well, look, you're a good client of mine. I'll give you one free shave, and then of course you must try and rebook that reshave. That might be a way of extending your business, like marketing. But no, I don't give away the thing they already come for.
Okay, and on clients again, what about giving a discount to pensioners and children?
Well, I don't see any logic in discounts for those people. First of all, we got to look at the tradition of those things. I understand on the pension side of things, even that is now moved, isn't it? So pensioners used to be really old people with no money. You know, we had a lot of respect in society for them, particularly in the UK, maybe through the 60s, 70s, and part of the 80s. I understand it, and I wouldn't be making these statements in those years. However, they are no longer the poorest in society as a group. Pensioners can now be people at 50 years old who are skydiving, jumping out of planes. Yeah. These this group of people are still highly active. They drive in often cars or nice cars. They're going on cruises and holidays. We do not need to subsidize their life. That's the first area, and we have to be bold about that. The second thing is we got to look at the chair space. You've only got so many slots unless you're going to keep working more and more hours. And we said earlier, I don't think you should work harder. So this could be linked to that one. Why do, say, a child or a pensioner at half price when it takes the same amount of time? When if you remarketed it properly, you would be filling that chair with a full price service. I think we go about it the wrong way. I think we say, "Oh, I've got some spaces, so it would be better to have a tenner than nothing." I kind of get that. And if you could just pull them out of the air when you wanted them, that'd be fine. But they don't. They book in, yeah, or they because we don't have a lot of walk-in services anymore. But they tend to book in, and therefore that space is gone. And the same with children.
You
Now
know,
the
Carl,
children. Go on.
I've
Sorry.
no, I've had moments where I'm sitting doing nothing, and someone will come to the door and they'll ask for a haircut, and they'll say, "Oh, I normally pay £10 for that, right?" And even though I'm doing nothing, I won't do it because then I know they're going to come back looking for that at the same price, and it's exactly what you said. They're going to fill up the space that I've got available for people who are prepared to pay the full price.
Yeah, and then it's the same with the children. So the children is slightly different because we have this psyche that I'll do children at a low price because the parents won't bring them otherwise. Okay. I usually celebrate when that happens. Well, you won't bring them again. Woo! Right? Great, well done. But we do that because we got this psyche in our mind, and it is back from the 60s and 70s and early 80s, that if I do the children now at half price or a big discount, they will eventually become my adults and my clients. Except it never happens because the parents bring them now. But when they get to 13, 14, or 12, maybe, they go wherever they want to go, those kids. They want to go to the coolest place. They want to go to where their friends are going. Yeah. Or go a little bit further. Maybe you will get them to 14, 15, 16, and then they go to university. They leave the area. They join the army. And even if you were right and you converted them, I've got one, right? I've spent 16 years nurturing this kid. They've cost me thousands and thousands and thousands in subsidy. You would have to keep them about 40 years to get all that profit back. So it's not a logical business. And I don't know if you know this, Michael, but I opened the first ever children's only salon in Wales, and I
I
opened it.
had no idea.
Yeah, I opened it in I can't remember what year it was now, 2003, I think, right? Um, only children, and I did
Why?
so. I'm because I thought what I'll do is I will grow my own, right? Well, the real reason was I didn't want kids in my salons. I didn't want them dancing around and spoiling the service for grown-ups. That was my
Right. So, okay.
first. Yeah, I had a terrible, terrible Christmas once where I spent 3 hours dancing around the coffee table with little kids while the mum had a colour, and I vowed this will never happen again. But my other motive was, what if we had all these kids and we grew them into adults, and I could push them into my salons? And that is exactly what happened. They grew and grew and grew. Okay, we did them at relatively cheap prices, and as soon as they got to 10, 11, 12, they went. Oh, where are they all gone? You know what I mean? So I feel qualified to say I did that experiment and it didn't work.
Well, I mean, after I talked to you a few years ago when we consulted, I abolished OAP and kids' prices. And even this week, I had like a report from Nearcut. They're my booking
Yeah, no,
service provider,
yeah, I
and
know
they
the guys.
showed what service I had actually sold in the shop. Now, one thing that I do discount for is toddlers, and I'm talking like babies, right? So you're talking that's the sort of thing that's going to take you maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. There's nothing to cut, and that's the only thing. So I set aside 20 minutes for that, and I sold 9 of them in an entire year, and everything else is the
Mm,
full price.
yeah.
You know, and I'm delighted. I really
Look,
am.
I did the experiment. I did free cats for free kids first cats with a photo frame and a certificate and all that sort of stuff, thinking of growing my own, and everyone was up for it as a. I mean, there are other motivations for this sort of stuff. Depending where your business is, we had to develop a community. So we wanted to connect with the community and do this stuff. But what you do realize in the long run is your community is not that loyal to you. Your community is loyal to whatever the trend is, or whatever the new fashion or fad is. So we can all try these things, but as a rules to so to speak of, unless you've got a children's only salon, then I wouldn't have children as part of most businesses. Not we can't say that for
Okay.
all of them, but it's not children, by the way. Let's qualify that. You might have to chop and cut this bit, but it, I never tell my clients to not do children. I always tell them to charge a full price. So we're not biased against children or OAPs. We don't say you're too young or too old to come to us. It's not that kind of a statement. It's you are both welcome to come here and pay the same as everyone else. See, that's a different philosophy.
The OAP thing that you were talking about there, in the town where I set up my first shop, at the time that I'd set it up, I had an OAP discount on the go, and the OAPs were so wealthy. I mean, there was two major businesses in that town. There was GlaxoSmithKline and GE Oil and Gas, and these guys are on pensions from a life of working for GlaxoSmithKline, living the life exactly as you described it. Full heads of hair, some of them, and I'm doing a discount for them when the 18-year-old that's just started out as an apprentice is getting charged the full price. It really makes no sense.
Doesn't balance. Yeah, it does. But don't forget as well, for everyone in society, there is somewhere for them to go, and but it doesn't have to be you. It's not up to us to subsidize everyone. If you've got a business model that works at £10 a haircut, good on you. Then those people will join you, and great news. But if you've got a £20 model, you shouldn't be subsidizing other people.
Carl, you've given us an absolute wealth of advice today. Where can people find you? Where can salon owners and businesses find you? And what sort of services do you offer for them?
Okay, so you can find me in terms of social media. You'll find me on all the platforms, whether we're on LinkedIn or Instagram. I spend most of my time around Facebook and interacting there. I've got a couple of sites, including a free Facebook group, okay? And it's the Salon Help Facebook group. That's the best place to come and start chatting to me straight away. You can email me info@salon-help.co.uk. You can telephone me. My telephone number is everywhere, and you can have it now: 07931 518 642. The only time I don't answer the phone is if I'm with a client or sleeping, okay? But I'll answer the phone otherwise. The services I offer are kind of wide and varied. You got to think about what clients have in terms of problems. So I would say I offer problem solution. I always think of myself as a sales strategy coach. That's what I do best. I help you grow the sales in your business. But of course, all of the things we spoke about today so far all funnel, don't they, into sales. So whether it's pricing, retailing, or marketing, I'm your man.
Carl, last word. What makes a good team in a salon or a barber shop?
The absolute number one thing is a good owner. We have to start to understand that what it means to have a good team. Good owners think they are the owners who love their team and show them all the emotion, and sometimes are too afraid. And this is the bit that answers your question. They are too afraid to manage the team. So a good team is a team that is held accountable, understands what their role is in the business, And once they actually do what they're meant to be doing, are then properly rewarded, whether that's financially or whether it's with motivating conversation. So a good team is when the salon owner is focused on accountability, on achieving targets, but eventually shares not just the wealth and money, but shares, the energy and shares everything about their business.
Carl Hinder, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully, we can get you on again sometime soon.
I hope so. I look forward to it, and thank you very much for having me, Michael. I appreciate that.